After I finished college wrestling, I coached for a couple of years in college, and then it was my first year coaching at the high school in Pendleton, and that's when I contracted the infection. I first noticed it, I thought it was an ingrown hair. I wasn't sure what it was exactly. I didn't know if it was a spider bite or an ingrown hair. I wound up having 3 different surgeries. They were like, oh my gosh, uh-oh, it's MRSA, this is not good. You know, we always had cleaned our mats on a daily basis and that kind of thing, but you know, our focus was not on prevention of skin infections. It was more on getting better at wrestling, obviously. We did have a team rule at the time that every kid needed to shower after practice and wear clean clothes and things like that, but it certainly wasn't policed very closely and made sure that every kid was diligent and making sure they were avoiding, you know, infections. Okay, so we know that is really dangerous, but what is MRSA? Well, it's a bacteria, a bug, a germ, a microscopic killer that slips into your skin and infects it. It's also the most common cause of skin and tissue infections in the U.S. today. MRSA stands for Methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. It's a staph infection that has evolved through the years. It's gotten tougher, and now the common antibiotics like penicillin, methicillin, and oxacillin no longer effective. These resistant bugs can even beat the newest and best antibiotics out there, allowing MRSA to spread and grow. You know, growing up wrestling, most of the skin infections and whatnot that you would hear about would be ringworm. Occasionally you'd run into some staph infection. You know, it didn't initially look like anything that was going to be a serious problem. I waited till Monday morning, went to the doctor, got some antibiotics, returned home. Things didn't get any better. They actually progressed. They got a little bit worse and a little bit worse. Went back on Monday to the emergency room. Got some more antibiotics, some different antibiotics. I was under the impression that second round would do the trick. The thing that most people don't realize is the progression and seriousness of MRSA. Some cases within days and sometimes even hours. Something as simple as a small boil or a cut can become an abscess, or a series of small boils might erupt. If you ignore it, the wound can grow and grow in length and in depth. If left untreated, it can even move deeper into your body and infect your blood, your organs, or your bones. In the worst cases like mine, you end up in a hospital bed with an IV in your arm. People have had limbs amputated, and otherwise healthy young athletes have even died. On Thursday, I saw the nurse practitioner at our school, and she said, you have to get in to see the specialist because this is not a good situation. And again, by that time, my leg had really, really swollen up and things had significantly deteriorated. The initial site of the injury was right here. It was just a little spot, and I still have actually a little scar right there. And that's where it started, and then it progressed. Like I said, by the end of the day, it was probably about like that. And then that was on a Saturday. Sunday morning, it had started to crawl up my leg. By Monday or Tuesday, it was the size of, I mean, almost like a volleyball. When he told me I was going to have surgery, that was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was in surgery about 5 o'clock that evening. He had kind of described an incision about like this, you know, somewhere in here to clean all this out. And like I said, I woke up with a 14-inch incision, basically went from here just up above my knee. It was really surprising, and when the doctor came in and said, you know, this is a lot worse than what I anticipated, that was a scary moment. Once they found out it was MRSA infection, things became a little more serious as far as the tone of the hospital and the doctors and whatnot, because they were worried that it would continue to progress. There was some conversation with my wife and I believe my parents as well about the possibility of losing my leg and ultimately, if left untreated, would kill me. You know. After the second time they had to do surgery, they went in and they made a second incision because the infection had spread up my leg. up towards, basically from my ankle to my tailbone. It had spread, so they had to make an incision higher up on my leg to get to the infection. There's about a 2-day waiting period in there where they were just waiting to see whether or not the medical attention that they were giving me was working. And fortunately it did, and I think I was lucky from that standpoint. And I'll never ever forget the first time they bent my leg after surgery. It was the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. I spent the first month out of the hospital. I was in the hospital for 10 days, I believe, 9 or 10 days. And then following that, I was basically bedridden. I was in bed for a month after that. It happened at the end of January. And if I was competing, it would have completely ended any hope to finish the season at that point. So we've talked about how serious and dangerous MRSA is, but where does it live? Well, the most dangerous place of all might be a locker room. MRSA loves warm, humid environments. In fact, these bacteria can hang out and live on a bar of soap or a wet towel for days, just waiting until the next innocent victim comes along. That's why they call this community-acquired MRSA, because it can spread through a whole community or team. One of the most common ways MRSA is spread is through the hands, and fortunately, that's easy to fix. In fact, the best way to beat MRSA is to practice good hygiene along with whatever sport you play. We want to stress that when we wash, we talk to our athletes and when we're washing our hands, that we wash up above the elbow with an antimicrobial soap to make sure that, because that's the biggest area of skin-to-skin contact is going to come with your hands. MRSA is alive on wrestling mats, towels, football pads, knee pads, anything that your skin is going to come in contact with, uniform-wise, in any sport. So one of the things that people don't realize is that when somebody puts on a knee pad or an elbow pad, and then they take that pad off, they slough some of the dead skin cells off. And that is where the staph infection can live, off the dead skin cells that are remaining in that particular pad. Here are a few tips to keep you safe in the locker room and in competition. Because MRSA loves sweaty skin, wash with an antibacterial soap like Hibiclens. Hands are the greatest risk, so hand washing is the best defense. Make sure you wash the skin that's underneath pads with an antibacterial soap like Hibiclens. Have your athletic trainer look at the most suspicious lesions. Wash your workout clothes in hot water, then dry them with hot air until they're completely dry. And always clean your equipment. I'm a living example of someone who is fairly diligent in making sure that I am hygienic, but at the same time, there are some other preventative measures that we need to take to make sure that these things aren't happening. And that's the one thing that I would tell athletes is that this can happen to anybody in any sport. One thing for sure is that MRSA affects all sports, whatever sport it is. If you get sweaty, come in contact with other players, share common gear, or even just touch common surfaces, you've got to remember that your best defense is a shower with an antimicrobial cleanser like Hibiclens. MRSA is invisible and dangerous, but it can be beat. Just like any competitive sport, you have to take the workout as serious as game day. By practicing good hygiene in the locker room and in competition, we can keep this dangerous little bug from even being a factor. Trust me, washing with an antimicrobial cleanser like Hibiclens will now forever be a part of my workout. Long term, it's taken me a long time to recover, I think, but in the end, I'm lucky from the sense of I've been able to coach and wrestle, pretty much freely right now. But I got lucky.